All right, can everybody see my screen?
Says simple tax support. Yep.
All right, so what we're going to do today, we're just going to kind of get a general overview of some of the things inside the software, and then we're going to walk through a return from start to finish, utilizing the features of the software, as well as some new features that you guys may not have seen yet that's inside the software. So starting here on our dashboard, dashboard shows an overview of sort of what's going on inside the software. You've got return information. The message board will show you important information throughout the year as we post things, your rejected summaries, your daily summaries, your e-file summaries, just quick little widgets of report information. Okay. Up here at the top, we've got a couple of things and a couple of new things. One is view text messages. So we have integrated a text messaging solution inside the software that will allow you to send text messages to those customers that have opted in for text messaging. When we get into the return, I'll show you what the opt-in process looks like and actually how to send a text message. Okay, but this view text message, if they reply to that text message, it will show you in this view text message box, and you'll be able to actually see those text messages. Okay, go back to the dashboard here. We also have live chat, so you can actually chat with customer support directly from inside of the software. Now, if you click live chat, it will just open a live chat button, and you enter your name and your EFIN, and you start chatting with someone in customer support for SimpleTax. Same thing with remote support. We've added this button in here as well. So if customer support, for whatever reason, needs to get a remote support session to see what you're working on and help you through a problem, you can just click remote support. They'll give you a session ID, and then you just enter your EFIN in the name field. We do that for reporting and quality assurance purposes. If you put your EFIN in that field, it makes it easier for us to review the recording later if we need to go over something with the support agent. Okay. Jumping right into it, the very first thing you guys will see is now we have this text summary button up here in the client list. So we have a list of our clients, right? But we have this text summary, which takes you to the same place that this view text message link will take you. It takes you to the exact same place. Okay, so we're going to start a new return. So we click new return. We're going to enter in a social. I do want to point out something here for any new users that we have. This is a little bit different maybe than what you've been using before. This form 1040 SS down here at the bottom, it causes a little bit of confusion because of this line right here where it says U.S. self-employment tax return. This only applies to bona fide residents of Puerto Rico. Your standard self-employment tax return people are going to use a Schedule C off of the 1040, not the 1040 SS, okay? So we'll do save and continue. And it launches right into the software. Now, this is the direct input mode. There is an interview mode as well. Maybe if you're less experienced with the software, if you're more comfortable using an interview mode style, that does exist. So we're going to put in a little basic information. I want to kind of give you guys a tip right here. One, if you're on any form and you're not sure what required fields there are on said form, you can go to the bottom and click save on that form, and it will highlight with these red question marks rather, all of the required fields. So that's just a little tip there to help you through maybe some of those forms you don't know. No, we're going to do a head of household return today. Okay. There is a zip code database, so you can't bypass the city and state. You do not have to enter the city and state information. It will pull it from the zip code database automatically. Right here is where I earlier talked about the taxpayers need to opt in for text messaging. There's an opt-in box right here. Please be sure that you do ask them if it's okay for you to send text message alerts from your tax office to their cell phones. Most people are not going to care that much, but you will find the handful that for whatever reason would rather you did not send them text messages. So you always make sure that you want to ask. You don't want to just assume that they're okay with it. Here's another tip. Okay. On this resident state field, the resident state by default pulls whatever state is listed in the address. If for whatever reason their resident state for the previous tax year was not the same as this resident state on their address, you can change this here and it will add the state return, add a resident state return to the tax return automatically. You won't have to go in and actually add the state. It will add it automatically for you. It will also add states based on the state field on a W-2. And I'm going to show you guys that one specifically later. One of the things that's different in this software, maybe than some others, you do have the option to generate the actual tax forms that print or that you email to your clients in Spanish simply by checking this box here that says check here if you want to generate Spanish versions of the forms. If you've got a predominantly Spanish speaking customer, that may be a good route for them. At least they can have a better understanding of their actual tax forms because it's in a language that they speak. Down here is the bank information. I encourage you that if your taxpayer gives you direct deposit information, enter it here in the software. Even if they opt to get a paper check later via bank product, or they just decide that, no, I want to get a paper check, whatever the case is, they decide they want to do Walmart direct to cash, for example, having that information in here already saves you time when you get to do the bank application because it will pull that information directly to the bank application. Okay. So we're going to save. We've answered all the questions that we need to on the personal information sheet. All right. So now you've got a couple of options. And it's all a matter of preference in how you do things. You can scan their documents now using DM Docs, or you can wait. You can wait until you're finished and do that process. I'm going to show you what it looks like now if you go to DM Docs. So if we click DM Docs, it's going to pop a window. And you either have the option to upload documents. You can upload any document type that you want. There's not any specification. So if they send you a picture, that's fine. You can upload it as a picture. They send you a PDF, you can upload it as a PDF. There is a 2 megabyte size limit though on the file. So if the file is larger than 2 megabytes, you might run into a problem and we'll have to, you'll either have to shrink it down, or if you need, you can call support. We can try to guide you through, reducing that file size. You can also scan documents and you can use any scanner that's available to you. Let me clarify that. You can use any webcam that is connected to you. So if you have a webcam like I do, you see there's my ceiling. You can use that webcam to actually capture documents, or you can use the document scanner. There is a document scanner available. There's a document scanner that's available. It's about $99. It's on IPVO. It's a 4K HD full color scanner. It has worked very, very well for many years inside this software.
Are there scanners that don't work well with the software?
Uh, anything that your computer recognizes as a scanner and not a webcam will not work. Now you can always scan locally, like if you've got a big multifunction printer or something like that, or a physical scanner, that you put the pages in and it scans each individual page. You can scan those directly to the computer and then upload them, which is why we have the upload feature, but it won't scan directly using the scan function. Does that make sense?
Yes and no. But overall, yes. Thank you.
Okay. I'm glad I was able to kind of answer that. It's a little tricky. It's based on how your computer reads the scanner. If it reads it as a webcam, then it will work using the scan function in DM Docs. Otherwise, it won't. That's sort of the best answer I can give. So moving on, right? So in this case, we'll just assume that we scan the documents that we needed, and we're going to continue with the return. So on the next, we're going to go to the next page or the next, page. We'll go to the next section, which is additional information. And this is where you're going to enter the information about identity verification. This is a big push for the IRS over the last 2 or 3 years. They are starting to fine tax preparers for not verifying identity. And in particular, following 2020, they're going to be really heavy on this because we did a lot of tax returns remotely. And the expectation is we're going to continue to do a lot of tax returns remotely. So verifying that person's identity is key, because if you don't, you could be a party to someone stealing someone else's identity. So identity verification is a very important topic within the IRS. So in addition to getting their ID and social security cards, you actually need to verify that the person who you're speaking to that is doing and signing the tax return is the same person on the ID, right? The ID matches that person. Remotely, that becomes a little trickier, which is why I encourage everyone, if you're doing remote tax returns, before you finish and finalize that tax return and send it to them to sign, do a Zoom meeting, have them come by the office, do a FaceTime, whatever you need to do, and make sure that that ID and that person matches up. If it doesn't, that's where you can stop, and you haven't done anything necessarily wrong at that point because you haven't sent the return, right? So that's my bit of advice in that section. Okay. In this case, we're just going to say yes. So this very first question, I don't want to skip ahead too fast. This very first question says, at any time during 2020, did you receive, sell, send, exchange, or otherwise acquire financial interest in any virtual currency? This is what we affectionately refer to as the Bitcoin question. Okay. And this was the best place for us to put it. So if they had Bitcoin, by default, we have it set to no. But if they did do any virtual currency transactions in the year, you can come in and change this to yes, and it will have an impact on their taxes. Okay. The next question is, do they have a state issued driver's license or ID card? In this case, we're going to say yes. And we're going to enter that information. We're going to do driver's license. We're going to choose Texas because that's where we are. Issue date. And then an expiration date. We have these check boxes here if their licenses in some states don't have issue dates, some don't have. I know in Arizona, if you're over 65, I think it's over 65, your license never expires. They never have to renew it after that age. So there are states in which they don't have expiration dates, they don't have issue dates. So we have these check boxes here if you run into that circumstance. Now we get down into the actual verification. We're going to assume in this case that we're verifying their identity in person. So we're going to say yes. And then we're going to check this box that says that we have verified the possession of a current primary government issued picture ID that contains the applicant's picture and their address. We're going to verify that the ID is valid, that it's not expired. And we're going to verify that the ID is legitimate, right? You're going to look at it. You guys, especially in Texas, we've all seen Texas IDs 1,000 times. We know if it's legitimate. Okay. Then we're going to go down into this verification in remote. Because we did it in person, we don't need to answer, like we don't need to verify it again, right? So we're going to say no. Right. And this very last question is about the schedule LEP, which is a language preference poll question, basically from the IRS, to see if your taxpayers want it in any other language, written communication from the IRS in any other language besides English. I can tell you this, save yourself the time, answer this question no if the option is Spanish. The IRS is fully aware that Spanish is the very first thing that they need to translate their written communications into. There's no reason for you to take the extra clicks, right, and have to choose it. Just answer no and move on, and know that Spanish is going to be at the top of that list. Okay. If you have clients though, and I have run into this before, I have clients here in Houston that the predominant language for their customer base is Vietnamese. I encouraged her to answer this question yes and select Vietnamese. See if maybe we can get that pushed up that list a little bit earlier, because the IRS is going to prioritize the translations based on how people answer this particular question. Okay. So we're going to save here. Now we're going to go to the next section, which is dependent information. Okay. And this is what I call the Excel view. You'll see this throughout the software repeatedly, on W-2s, 1099s, the schedules, forms that have multiple instances, anything that's could possibly have multiple copies of that form. We're going to have this view. Okay. And to add new, we literally just click add new, right? And we're going to type in the dependent information, relationship, date of birth, the SSN. If the dependent has an identity protection PIN, that's where you would enter it, is in each independent screen. Okay. By default, we do answer some of these questions for you, right? We assume that the dependent lived with you for 12 months. If that's changed, then you change it here, right? If it's not 12 months, if it's 7 months, because if it's less than 6 months, you can't claim that dependent. Okay. Aside from standard other scenarios, but just simply adding the dependent, they need to live with you for at least 6 months, or they don't qualify, right? We also answer some of these other questions based on the information that you provide, right? We know that we can claim them as a dependent because they lived with you long enough to qualify as a dependent. The relationship status qualifies as a dependent. The age qualifies as a dependent. We know those things. The eligible for child tax credit and then claiming EIC, we know that based on social and age, right? So we're going to answer that question for you, try to be as intuitive as they can. And then based on the social, we know that they're a U.S. citizen or a resident alien or U.S. national. So we answer those questions. Some of these questions can't be answered by the software, right? We don't know if the taxpayer or if the dependent is deceased. We don't know if they're a full-time student. We wouldn't know if they're permanently or totally disabled. When you file head of household, at least one dependent must be a qualifier for head of household. So there is an HOH qualifier checkbox that you do want to check when you're filing head of household for at least, well, and I won't even say at least, you should only check this box for one dependent. So I generally tell people if they got multiple dependents and that person is a head of HOH, mark that first one as the qualifier, and that way you can move on. You don't have to check that box again. You can enter the dependent, the qualifying child and dependent care expenses here if you have that information. I encourage you to do that. I'm going to do it so that you see why it's a good idea to go ahead and do it. We're going to put 3,500 in here for the sake of doing it. If they have qualified tuition and related expenses that's not listed on a 1090-18, then you can enter it here. I have to tell you though, I'd be really careful doing that. The IRS is really cracking down on education credits, and that 1090-T is sort of your bailout moment. Be really, really sure if you're doing qualified tuition and related expenses that are not listed on a 1098-T that they are valid. Education credits have been on the rise over the last few years as a potential fraud point. So the IRS is really cracking down on that. Okay. We also answer some of these questions down at the bottom, which you guys might be used to seeing somewhere like on a schedule EIC, based on the information that is already provided, right? We assume that no other person can claim this dependent as a qualifying child for EIC purposes. If the answer is yes, then you change it and you answer the rest of those questions, right? The ACA question down here at the bottom, you want to make sure that you answer yes or no. If they have health insurance in the marketplace, answer yes. The answer, if they don't, the answer is no. It's a lot simpler than it was 3 years ago. So we're going to save. And you'll see here, right? Here's the list of everything that you can kind of see. So you kind of get a quick little overview of everything. So if you've got multiple dependents, they show up on this screen. But we also have a warning here, right? It says you've entered child and dependent care expenses. So you have to enter any care provider information on part 1. So we're going to go do that because that's the next thing on this screen. So we're going to click the 2441. It's going to take us over here. So we're going to choose our state. And if you see, the dependent information flows automatically from that screen. We pull the name, we pull the social, we pull the expenses. So you don't have to enter that section. That's why I said earlier, it's a good idea to add those expenses if you have them, and they're going to be claiming the 2441 to go ahead and put that information directly on the dependent screen so that it carries. Now we just need to add a provider. We're going to enter daytime phone number, and then the amount paid. We're just going to put all 3,500 in the same place. So now if we go down, everything else is pretty clear, right? Did you pay 2019 expenses in 2020? That's the only question that you have to ask. We're going to say no, and we're going to hit save. And that 2441 is now done. Now, this leads us sort of to our next section, right? We've got all the basic information for this taxpayer done. We did the credit because it was quick. It was right there. Okay. The next thing is over here on this left-hand side. This is all forms. So if you scroll through this list, you're going to see every form that's available. That's a lot to go through if you're looking for something specific, right? So for our cases, we're going to go ahead and add a W-2. So if I type in W-2 in the form search, it will give me every form that has W-2 in it, right? So I've got a W-2 VI, a W-2G, W-2 PR. Those are all there. And this applies not just with form numbers, but with any word. For example, if my taxpayer sold their house, I can do home. And it will give me anything, any credit that has the word home in it, whether it be the form name or number or the form description, right? Like first-time home buyer credit or District of Columbia first-time home buyer credit, sale of main home. These things are there. So we're going to go add a W-2 real quick. And again, we get the Excel view. So we're going to do add new. You can change who the W-2 belongs to up at the top. We only have a primary taxpayer because we're filing head of household. There is an EIN database. So you can type in that employer identification. It will pull the EIN information that you have already entered. I know some people in here are changing from one software to the other. The EIN database is part of the conversion. So your current EIN database in if you're using the Simple Tax 1040 software, for example, that will carry forward. Other softwares, if you're a new customer to Simple Tax, unless you were using a software that allows us to convert the EIN database, it won't be. But I want to assure those Simple Tax customers that are moving from 1040 to KISS, we will be able to convert the personal information sheet, the dependent information, as well as the EIN database. Okay.
Excuse me. I know that you have to add a W-2 form if they have multiples, but do you have to add it for the first initial W-2 or is it already on there?
No, you want to add, yeah, you have to click add to add to that form from that list. So yeah. So right here, we're going to throw in some wages. Let's do, I don't know. Here's another one of those tips. If you ever see a W-2 that is 21,000 and the federal income tax withheld says 5,600, you see whole numbers like that, you might want to question that W-2 as being legitimate. It's just extremely unlikely that you wouldn't have, in particular, the federal tax, the federal income tax withheld being a big round whole number like that is a little sketchy. So you might want to take that extra minute, you know what I mean, and review it with a little closer eye is the best way I can say it. So we've got that entered. We're going to come down here to the state ID information. And this is one of the things I said I was going to show you guys earlier, how the software takes that information and is very intuitive in how it works those states, right? So we're going to hit save. And you'll see that the state of Colorado is now added up here in the top. If you need to add states that aren't on W-2s or aren't their resident states, right, that aren't going to auto populate, you can click this plus sign and then choose the state that you want to do. So we're going to go look at this Colorado return real quick. So by default, right, because we told the software on the personal information sheet that the resident state is Texas, it's going to assume that they're a full year non-resident by default. So you don't have to go searching for non-resident forms or part year resident forms. It's all right here. So if they were a part year, then you do part year and you enter those dates, right? If they're a full year non-resident, that's it. By and large part, the states pretty much fill themselves out unless you need specific things for that state, right? So we're going to go back to the federal. All right, and quickly, I'm going to show you guys the filed forms tab. This filed forms tab shows you every form that is attached to the return currently, right? So we know we have the 1040, we have the 2441, we have the W-2 that are already attached. So all of these things are already attached. So the next step for us is we're going to go add a Schedule C. So you can type in schedule, right? Oop, if I could spell. Type in schedule, or you could select it from the all forms list. And again, back to the Excel view. So we click add new. We're going to enter the principal business, the product or service. And then the business code, I always use this pick from list. If you memorize the codes, great, just enter them and that's fine. You don't have to use the pick from list, but there's a lot of codes and I don't know about you guys. I don't want to take the time to memorize all million codes there are. So I just do pick from list and then you can go through construction of buildings, residential building construction, great, save. So you can select from the category and then select from the subcategory and then you can kind of move on from there. So we're going to go down. We've got everything saved. The income that we have is going to be specific from a 1099 NEC. So now that we've created the Schedule C, the next step would then be to add the 1099 NEC. So we're going to go over here. We're going to type in 1099. We're going to scroll down a little bit and we can go to NEC and we're going to add, right? And we're going to do it the same way we do with the W-2. The same EIN database works. And we're going to put 2,500 in this non-employee compensation. Now, this reporting section is the most important piece. And this is why you want to add the schedule before you add the 1099. Because if you don't, you have nowhere to report it or you won't be able at least to report it to that Schedule C. If you choose pick from list, then you get that Schedule C. You can select it and click use. Then when you click save, now we can go look at that Schedule C from file forms. And you'll see that the gross sales is here now. And if we dive in a little deeper to it, you can see that it's coming from the 1099 NEC that we just created. So it makes that process easier if you go schedule, then form. Okay. Down in the expenses piece, and this is probably one of my favorite features inside this software, is these little clipboard here. It's called a work pad. So in this work pad, we can enter things. So I did office expense. So we'll do copy paper. And we spent 75 bucks. And then you can just continue to add. This allows you to create an itemized list for any of those fields that actually have that work pad option. And then you can review those at a later time using the work pad button up at the top. So there's a work pad button. We're inside the Schedule C, so it won't let us click on anything up here. But once I save, I'll show you. Going down to the next most important section, which is going to be mileage. It's probably the most common expense taken on a Schedule C. Again, same thing in the Excel view. So we're going to click add new. We're going to put the date that the vehicle was first placed in service. And in this case, it was 2017. You're going to put in the business miles that they drove. We're going to do 1,500. And then you're going to answer the questions from 45, 46, and 47. So we're going to say yes, 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 yes. And then the last two questions, no, I did have more than 5 vehicles, and no, I didn't lease the vehicle. So here's where you can switch between the standard mileage rate and actual vehicle expenses. There's a toggle here between the two. So it calculates what that standard mileage is, and it shows you it's $863, right? So if we go to the actual expenses, we know now that the actual expenses should be greater than $863 for us to want to take actual expenses over standard mileage. If it's not, then we just take the standard mileage and we move on. So we're going to take the standard mileage, we're going to save. When we come back down, you'll see that that information is transferred over to line 9 of the Schedule C. Pretty straightforward as far as that goes. So we're going to come back down, we're going to go ahead and save. Now, I feel like I'm done with this return. I've entered all of the information, right? I have all their income. I have the dependent information. I've done their child care credit. I think I'm done. So I'm going to hit verify and let's see. So we hit verify. Okay, so we've got a couple of things here. Some of these won't be won't apply for next tax season. In particular, a lot of the coronavirus relief bill stuff. The recovery rebate credit will apply again because we did get that third payout after Biden took office. So we're going to start at the, I always like starting in the middle, right? Which is the following errors are critical that will cause rejection with the IRS. So we're going to start at the 8867, which is the due diligence form. So we're going to do click here to fix. Oh. I don't know why that didn't kick me over, but that's okay. Click add new. And by default, it's going to check those boxes at the top for the things that for the credits that we're claiming that require the extra due diligence. So now it's just a matter of answering the questions appropriately. Now we also have grayed out questions that you don't need to answer based on previous answers, right? If I had answered yes on question 4, then I would need to answer 4A and 4B. But because I answered no, I don't need to answer questions 4A and 4B, right? Question 5 is crucial. So question 5 is talking about record retention, right? Did you look at documents? Are you keeping documents to verify that they qualify for these credits? So we're going to say yes. And then right here, we're going to click a tax explanation and we're going to enter the documents that we used. So in my case, I'm going to say school records, bank statements, right? So then we save. This will help you in that due diligence with the IRS, because if the IRS comes asking, you can go back to this section, you can look at that attached explanation, right? And see what documents you should have, because these are the documents that you used, and that makes sure that you stay compliant. So now we go down and we ask the additional questions. We're going to answer more questions and more questions and more questions. Then we get down to question 15, which is the most important question, which is, do you certify that all the answers on this form 8867 are, to the best of your knowledge, true, correct, and complete? I promise you, if you answer no on this, eventually the IRS is going to come pay you a visit, because you literally are telling them that you didn't do your due diligence. You just answer questions and you have no knowledge of anything. So this bottom section is probably my favorite section in this entire software. This box is where you can enter the questions that you asked, right? Can anyone else claim this dependent? And then you acknowledge the answer, no, right? So whatever questions it was that you asked, right, this taxpayer, to ensure they were compliant, right? That no one else can claim this dependent. For example, if a grandparent is claiming a grandchild, do they have custody? Why isn't the parent claiming them? What's the circumstance? These are all things that, unfortunately, some of them are difficult questions to ask, and quite often very uncomfortable, but they are questions that you do need to ask. It's a matter of protecting you as well as protecting the taxpayer. They may not know that they can't claim this credit if they don't have physical custody of a child or something to that nature, right? It tracks the date the information was received, and then you can click to say who you got the information from. And in this case, we're just going to say we got it from the taxpayer. And this is the most important box on this page to me. Check this box to generate the worksheet for the taxpayer's signature. They will get a page, and I'll show you when we do the view print. They'll get a page that shows all the questions that you asked and the answers that they provided, and we'll have them, it will request that they sign saying that all of the information above is true and correct to the best of their knowledge. That will save you in an audit with the IRS, no question. Will save you in an audit with the IRS. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save on this. And then we're going to hit verify again, and let's see what else we got. All right, so let's go to the recovery rebate credit for the 2020 economic impact payments. In this case, we're just going to say yes, because I don't want to dive into all the complexities of this. So our taxpayer got both the EIP1 and the EIP2. In 2022, you guys will be reconciling the EIP3 payments, okay? So we're going to save here. We're going to verify again. So this is a great example of sometimes there are things that we try to push you to make sure that you're aware of. So in the coronavirus relief bill, it gave taxpayers the ability, I won't say the option, the ability to use their 2019 earned income to figure out their earned income tax credit and the additional child tax credit if it was higher than their 2020 income, right? So this is not something that you necessarily have to do or that you even qualify to do, but we want to make sure that you go and at least look at this form and acknowledge that you did see it, right? So we're going to do click here to fix, and it's going to take us to that form. Now, in the case of our taxpayer, we're just going to assume that they made less in 2019. So all we have to do is click save, and that will clear that verify error. So when we go to verify, now that error is gone, and all we have left now is the taxpayer PIN and the form QBI. So we're going to go do the QBI. We're going to do click here to fix. And then right here, we're just going to go add new, again in that Excel list. We're going to do on the QBI, so it's for the Schedule C, but we're going to choose pick from list to make sure that we get the right Schedule C. Do use, it will calculate the qualified business income, and if we do save, That's pretty much all you have to do. It will calculate the rest of the QBI for you. There's not much else that you need to do unless you have specific, RET dividends or trade partnership income, things like that. But for the most part, that's the end of it for most of you guys. So we're going to go down. We're going to click save. We're going to click verify again. Last thing we have now is the taxpayer PIN information. So we're going to go and click here to update. And this is really easy. The ERO information is typically already set for you. You click the link that says auto generate taxpayer PIN and check the box that says enter by ERO, click save, and you're done. That's the extent of what you have to do on the 8879. Okay. So now we're going to hit verify again. We have no verify errors on federal. We have no verify errors in the state of Colorado. So we're done. We can go complete. So we want to mark the return complete. You also want to mark it reviewed. If the return's not marked complete, you can't process the payment, which is the next section. If the return is not marked reviewed, you cannot e-file it. So those two things, you want to make sure that you answer yes to, are you ready to mark the return complete? Are you ready to mark the return reviewed? So we're going to save and redirect to manage returns. So this is the client manager. So when you talk to support, that's how they're going to refer to it as the client manager, right? Gives you an overview of everything. You can see their personal information, their contact, their income summary, the federal, state. We get down here into the start payment. Now, I typically, and this is just my process, and you guys may have a different process, and it's up to you sort of how you guys work that, okay? I typically, at this point, will get the signatures before I go into the payment. If they're not going to do a bank product, okay, if they're going to do a bank product, I would process the payment first. And that's what we're going to do. So I want to show you guys how the bank product works, right? So we're going to do start payment. You're going to click add new invoice. I have this one set up to manually charge per returns and not charge for states. So I have to enter in my fee. You can have it set up by form. It could be set up as a flat rate, or you can set it up to do manual, which is what I did. Oh. So now we're on the invoice. If we need to modify the charges, we click modify charges, and then you can enter a discount or you can add additional charges. You just click continue to move forward. So down here in the bottom section is where you're going to decide whether or not this is a bank product, right? They're going to have their fees withdrawn from their refund via the bank, or if they're going to pay you up front, cash, credit card, check. In this case, we're going to do the bank products because we want to take a look at that form. So we're going to go to banking and then hit continue. Oh, never mind. No, we're not. I forgot what date it was. We can't do bank products anymore. So we're going to go back to payment details. We'll show you non-banking because that's the only option I have because of the dates. So we'll do non-banking. Okay. So you're going to enter how much they paid you. If they did a credit card, you can enter the last 4 digits of the card. You get to select the card type with no problem. Then you want to mark the invoice complete. That's a key piece, is marking the invoice complete, because that tells the program, yes, I got paid and I'm ready to e-file this return now. So you can either select e-file this return now or leave it. Generally, I don't e-file using this function. That's up to you. But in this particular case, like, I still need to get signatures, right? So I'm going to say no and do save and continue. Now we see that the balance is 0. So we're clean. We're good. We can go back to manage returns. And now we're going to capture their signature. So we have a couple of options with signatures. They can sign using one of the approved signature pads. They can sign using your mouse. You have the option for remote signature, where they can sign either via their email or a text message. And they also have the option to sign through the client portal or the mobile app. That's entirely based on how you want to do it, right? In this case, I'm going to show you guys all of them, with the exception of the signature pad because I don't have one. But if they're using the signature pad or they're going to use the mouse, you just click start signature and then they can sign, right? I'm going to clear this signature. So if we go over to my tax office, now I'm going to show you guys the remote signature function. So we have remote signature only. Now there's a difference between the client portal and the remote signature. Okay. Remote signature is one-time access. So they will get to review their documents and then they will get to sign their documents. And after that, they're done. They don't have repeat access. The client portal will allow them repeat access, which means they can log in, they can review their documents, they can get copies, they can send messages, they can upload documents to you. And that does carry from the year that you created it forward. So if you created their client portal in tax year 2020, then when you do their 2021 return, their login stays the same. They can actually carry that from year to year. Okay. I'm going to show you remote signature because it's the most popular option. Okay. So we're going to do continue. And we're going to send this to my email so that you guys can see that. So we do send link to email. Now, the link is only valid for 30 minutes. So if they don't sign within that 30 minutes, you will need to resend it. Okay. So we're going to do send link. And it tells you that it's been sent. And then if we go back here to my tax office, you'll see the remote signature has been sent and the last date and time that it was sent. Once it expires, it'll give you the option to resend the link. Okay. Let me open another tab. Give me 1 second here. So you'll see here is the email that they get for the remote signature, right? So they're going to do click here to access. And it's going to take them to this page now where they have to enter the first name, last name, and then their date of birth. So I'm going to go back because I don't remember the social or the date of birth. So in here, we got first name is Simple Tax, last name is Support. The SSN was 55. Okay. So 555-15-1485. And the date of birth was 1/10/1983. So we click validate user. Now this process looks identical to what they will see if they do this on their phone versus doing it on a computer. It does not change. What it's doing now, and there we go. Now they can review anything. And this is one of the page I was showing you guys before. Here's that preparer note. So if they click on it, it's just going to open. And this is that page that I was telling you guys about from the 8867, where they have to sign, right, saying that the information that they provided to you is true and correct. So we've looked through it. The return looks good. We click, I have reviewed my return, and then they click done. Now it's going to ask them, do you want to electronically sign your tax documents? They're going to say yes and click continue. And to sign, they click start, and they can use their mouse if they're on a computer, or they can use their finger if they're on a mobile device. So we're going to sign, we're going to do save signature. And the last step is mark it complete. So they are done. Now, watch how quickly that happens. It's signed and it's done. It's ready to go. The reason for that is because they are signing directly into the same database as you when you're using the online software, which is one of the reasons I encourage everyone to use the online software. They're connected immediately to you. There's no waiting for their signature to show up. There's no possibility of it getting rerouted or delayed. It shows up 100% of the time. There's never a question about that. And some of you who are using remote signature under the 1040 software understand some of those difficulties that you guys had. Okay. So we're going to do save signature. We're done. Like all of this is good. So now we move on. We're going to close that window. We're moving on to the print section, right? So we click view print. And now because we use remote signature, we have a couple of options. You can print the prepare copy by selecting prepare copy and then print selected forms. And that will print out everything to your printer if you want to print and save files locally. Or you can do export to document manager. And if we do export to document manager, what it's going to do is take that signed copy of the return and move it over here to DM docs. And now we can see it, right? And so if we go print, oh, why is it not? Okay. I'm going to generate it as a PDF for the sake of doing this, but now if we look, now we can see the full return, everything, the invoices, all of those, the client letters. We go down. You see that the signatures are there, the preparer signature as well as the taxpayer signature is there on the 1040, and your signed copy of the return is now saved. You can print it at any time that you need to, but it's already there. Okay. For the client end, and this is the way the IRS states this, I always recommend do customer copy and then do add watermark. You want to add a watermark, people, I don't know why, they like to get their copies and then mail them. I have no idea why they do this. I've seen it done a lot. Watermark, at least at minimum, if the IRS gets it, they're not going to process it. They're going to immediately shred it because it's watermark that says do not file, right? It says client copy on it. So you have a couple of options here. If they're using the client portal, right, you can export to document manager and give them access to it in the client portal. Or you can print it for them using the same function. You can select what you want to select. If you don't want the letters or the invoices, that's fine. You can uncheck those. I would keep the privacy notice letter. IRS is a little touchy about that, but whatever you want to give them, you can select, right? You can do a select all, you can clear all, and then select the forms that you want. It's fine. Doesn't matter. In this case, I'm doing select all because I'm not printing it. I'm going to email it to the customer. So we're going to do email customer copy. Now, the rule from the IRS is this. You and the taxpayer must agree on how they are to receive their copy. You're only required to provide them one copy. Okay. So if you want to send it, if you want to print it and they want it via email, you guys have to come to a compromise, right? If you want to send it via email and they want it printed, you have to come to a compromise. Generally, I would say this. For a lot of customers, what they have, the mode they have gone into is, I'm going to email you a copy of your return. Most clients go, yep, great, thanks. And they move on. They don't even pay any further attention to it. But you will get some that go, no, I'd rather have it printed. If that happens, just print it. It's easier than trying to fight with them and go back and forth. Again, just my advice. So if you entered an email address on the personal information sheet, it will pull that email address to this screen. I did not enter one purposely because if you don't enter one, you can always enter one here, and you can always change this email address and send it to a different email address if they need to. So for example, if they want you to email a copy over to their other email address, you can do that. So we're going to do send email. The mail was sent successfully. We're going to close this. I'm going to open my email again. And let's see where it is. Should be coming any second now. Doesn't usually take long. We'll come back and look at it. While we're waiting on that email to send so that I can open it and show you guys what your clients will see on that, I want to talk to you about the text. So this is a new feature. We see that the cell phone numbers here, the taxpayer is opted in, and you can just come in and type your text and you do send message, and that's it. Now it's also tracked in this text message. So it will show you what that process is, what user sent it, what time it was sent, what date it was sent. If they replied, that will show in here as well. Excuse me. So if I was to go in and reply, I can go and reply, and that text message will come back into here momentarily. Let's see if that, there it is. So here's our copy of the tax return, right? So you're going to get this nice framed email. It's telling you, even Gmail rather, is telling you that this is an encrypted document, which is required by the IRS. But down in the bottom here, it gives them the instructions on how to open it and examples, right? So it tells them the first four letters of the taxpayer's primary first name. So in our case, right, that's SIMP. The 4-digit or 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 2-digit year, or 4-digit year rather. So in our case, it's 01/10/1983. And then the last four, their social. So I'm going to open this and show you. And submit. Oh. That's weird. I was pretty sure that was right. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. So there's that text message coming back. But that's how it works, and it'll show, and they'll get the same full copy that you got of the documents. Okay. So pretty simple, pretty easy in terms of that. We want to hit back here. Okay, so we've gotten the signatures, we got their docs, we've done everything that we need to do inside this tax return, and now it's ready for us to transmit. So all we need to do is click transmit now, select what you want to transmit, and then hit transmit now. That's the best way to do it. It's simple, it's clean. Okay. So very simple process to do the return. I know some of you, again, I know some of you are changing softwares. It's just going to be a matter of kind of getting in early. And I would say over the next couple of months, get in early, do a handful of tax returns that you already did in the previous software so that you can kind of line those things up. It'll be a big help for you in that regard. Okay. One last thing I want to show you guys is this. So for those of you who are changing softwares, the way prior year returns are done is a little bit different. Okay. Prior year returns can be done inside this same software. So we're going to go to clients, and then there's a prior year return. You do not want to use this login to prior year because you weren't a prior year customer. So prior year returns are done in the current year database, not in the prior year database. Okay. So when you're doing prior year returns, you want to go clients, prior year return, select the year that you need to do. And in this case, I'll just say 2018, and then create new return. And you'll start that process there. One of the other things that you have the ability to do inside this software in regards to prior year returns is to click this file prior year return link from the client manager of that client. So if I click file prior year, you'll see this information is already filled out. I can hit save and continue. And in this case, I have it set to go to the interview mode just because I wanted to give you guys a brief view of how the interview mode looks. And this is how it looks, right? So it's a lot of save and continue versus the direct input mode. So we're going to click back. If you need to view that return, you're going to go to the same place, clients, prior year, edit view return, and you'll see that those returns exist right here. And that's where you just go and you edit the return and takes you back to the same place. Okay. Now this takes me back into interview mode because that's how I have it set. So we'll close this again. Now it's important to note, and this is why I did this. Remote signature, the client portal, and the mobile app, in addition to text messaging, will not work for prior year returns done this way, right? If you come in and you do prior year return, you will not be able to send it for a remote signature. They will not see it in the client portal or the mobile app, and they will not be able to send and receive text messages from that year, from that return. Okay. So those things are only active for the current year. They're not active for prior year. That's why I wanted to say that. When you need to run a client payment, right? So you've completed the prior year return and now we need to do client payment. You click client payment. You come in and you run invoice first. In this case, I don't know if I have any that are finished, but oh, great. Let's see if I have one that hasn't already been finished. Let's try this one maybe. Nope. So once you run the invoice, right, then you can do client payment, you can do payment, you can enter that payment amount, and it takes you through the same payment process, except it by default, it says it's going to be cash or check or credit card. I need to get them to add credit card. I'll get that entered. And then you just do save and continue. And then you're ready. At that point, if you have the edit button over here, it means the payment has been processed. And then you can go back to clients, prior year return, and queue for transmit if it qualifies for transmit. That's pretty much that process. If you want to get the status, again, you can do get e-file status and see everything you need for the prior year returns. Specifically, that was one of the things I wanted to show you. And then the last thing that I want to show you guys, because it's new and we just rolled it out, is check printing. For some banks, not all banks print through the software, some do. Those that do, in setup, we have check print now. Previously, you had to print checks using a check print software. We have eliminated that step, and now you can actually print checks from the online software. So no matter where you are, as long as you got a printer in the check stock, you can print those checks. So now I'm going to open it up to you guys for any questions that you might have. So if you want to enter them in the chat, or if you just want to unmute yourself and ask questions, please feel free. This is the time to do it.
Hi, sir. I didn't get the software. I was following you, but is there any certain avenue that I have to go through it, or do I just have to wait until she sends me the demo and then download the software?
It's well, thankfully, with the software being entirely web-based, it should be pretty easy for you to get access to it.
Okay.
What I would say is contact your account manager and see where they're at in terms of the setup process. I'm not sure.
Okay.
From my position here, I can't really see that information at the moment.
Okay.
But yeah, reach out to your account manager. They should be able to get you what you need.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Uh-huh. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Oh, and you will be sending out this recorded video to all of us. Is that correct?
Yes, it'll be
Thank you
sent
so
to you, as well as being posted to the Simple Tax Support YouTube channel,
Okay.
where there's already a bunch of videos there. If you haven't seen that, I would encourage you to check that out as well.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Sure, not a
Kevin,
problem.
excuse me, hey guys, what was the young lady's name that just said she was needing the software?
Tara Love.
Tara Love?
Yes.
Okay, Tara, I'll go ahead and reach out. My name is Rod Ellis. I'm actually one of the owners here, and I popped in a couple of times to take a
Oh,
look at what
hello.
we're doing. How are you guys doing? I just kind of wanted to thank you guys for the business and trusting in us to get you the product that you need for your business. So we really do appreciate that. And Kevin, I really appreciate you doing what you do. You're so good at what you do, and we appreciate you as well. So I see a lot of people on here that I know, and it's been a while, but we've gotten through this thing and we're continuously moving on. So yeah, Ms. Tara Love, I'll go ahead and make sure that you get this product for you with your rep, okay?
Thank you so much.
All right, Kevin, I'll turn it back over to you. You guys take care.
Thanks, Rod. I didn't even know you were in here, so.
Surprise, surprise, buddy.
So if you guys have any questions, again, like I said, if you have any questions, you can ask them here. But otherwise, you can always contact support. If you need any guidance, any assistance, any help, the
Yes.
support team is available to help you guys with that.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's always my pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Ivy, did you have a question? I see you unmuted, so I wanted to throw it and see if you had something. Well, I guess not. All right. So if that's all we've got for today, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I'll be processing this video, so it should be up later this afternoon. Again, it's going to get posted to the Simple Tax Support YouTube channel. If you haven't been there, if you haven't checked that out, I encourage you to. You can always get to it going to simpletaxsupport.com and then clicking on YouTube down in the bottom. And this video will be posted there later this afternoon, and then we'll get an email template with a direct link to that video out to you this evening or first thing tomorrow morning. So you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for joining us today.
You have a good day.
You
Thank
too.
you.
My pleasure.